A loud crash echoed through the hall as the glass door slammed open. People turned sharply, gasping, but Maya didn't slow down. Her heels scraped against the polished marble floor, her breath sharp and uneven as she pushed her way into the crowded summit room. Every camera swung toward her. Every executive froze. And then her eyes locked on him. Damian stood at the center of the room, mid-speech, his expression turning to stone the moment he saw her. His voice faltered. His fingers tightened around the microphone. For a moment, it felt as if the entire world tilted sideways, holding its breath. Maya walked straight toward him, chin high, a calmness in her stride that came only from surviving hell and walking back to the fire willingly. "You," Damian whispered, barely audible, but the microphone caught it and spread it across the room. Maya stopped just a few feet from him, the lights harsh on her face. She didn't blink. "You didn't bury me, Damian," she said softly. "You only taught me how to build stronger." A ripple of shock surged through the audience. Phones lifted. Whispers exploded. Damian took a step backward as if struck. And then the screen behind him flickered, revealing her name, Maya Reyes, listed as a major investor in one of the companies set to replace his own. She had returned. And she wasn't the same woman who disappeared 4 years ago. The room erupted, security rushed in, Damian tried to regain control, and Maya simply turned and walked out. Cameras followed her every step. The glass doors closed behind her with a soft hiss, leaving Damian's empire trembling. Hours earlier, she had sat in her car staring at her reflection, trying to steady her breath. She had imagined this moment so many times, confronting the man who once controlled her life, threatened her, nearly destroyed her. But imagining pain was never the same as facing it. For years ago, she had been someone else. She had answered to someone else. She had been powerless. Back then, she worked as an assistant in Cade Holdings, young and hopeful, believing hard work would carve a place for her. Damian's attention had been intoxicating, dangerous in ways she didn't yet understand. He was older, powerful, charming in a cold, precise way. Maya fell fast, too fast to see the claws beneath the compliments. And then she found out she was pregnant. She remembered the night she told him. His office was dim, the city glowing behind him like a wall of fire. She held her hands together so tightly her knuckles were white. Damian didn't speak at first, just sat back, staring at her as if she were a problem on a spreadsheet. Finally, he opened a drawer, pulled out an envelope, and dropped it on the table between them. 60,000, he said. Take care of it. Maya felt her stomach twist. Damian, no. I'm not ending the pregnancy. He leaned forward, eyes dark and sharp. Maya, this is not a discussion. You will get rid of it. I won't. Her voice trembled but held. His lips pressed into a thin line. Then you'll regret it. She walked out of the office shaking, her throat burning, her heart pounding. She didn't know regret then. But she learned it quickly. 2 nights later, she was leaving the parking lot behind the company building, alone, the street lamps flickering overhead. She never heard footsteps. Never had time to scream. A hand slammed her against a wall. Pain shot through her ribs as another blow followed. She tasted blood, felt the world spinning, her ears ringing. Ryland, Damian's fiancé's brother, held her in place, ice cold and shark-like. You're going to disappear, he hissed. Or you're going to die. She fell to the ground when he released her, coughing, clutching her stomach, terrified she would lose the baby right there on the pavement. Ryland leaned down, his voice low. You say a word, you breathe wrong, you show your face again, your body won't be found. And then he walked away, leaving her broken and shaking against the concrete. That night, Maya packed everything she could fit into one suitcase. She didn't call anyone. She didn't leave notes. She bought a bus ticket under a new name and left the city before sunrise. Maya Reyes died in that parking lot. Elena Cruz was born on the bus. She settled in a small coastal town called Harborview, keeping her head down, working at a bakery, saving every dollar. She gave birth to a baby girl, Liana, tiny, warm, and perfect, with big brown eyes that felt like a doorway to hope. Elena loved her with a fierce, desperate intensity, determined to give her a life far away from the darkness they escaped. Then an unexpected letter arrived. An aunt she barely remembered had passed away, leaving her $10 million and a minority stake in Ironwood Ventures, an investment company with serious influence. Elena almost fainted reading it. She could have hidden. She could have lived quietly forever. But pain had carved something sharp inside her, and motherhood had polished it into purpose. She used part of the inheritance to study investments, reading every book, taking online courses at night while Liana slept on her chest. She made her first small investments, then bigger ones, turning 10 million into 20, 20 into 40, until her name began appearing in places she once only delivered photocopies to. Elena Cruz became the woman Maya Reyes used to dream of being. And eventually, she returned, not for revenge at first, but to claim space. To build. To rise. But when she saw Damian again, standing in the center of the business world as if he still owned the air everyone breathed, something inside her shifted. Not hate. Not fear. Something sharper. Courage. She was not the girl he threatened. She was not the woman he tried to erase. She was a storm shaped by the silence he forced on her. As she walked away from the summit, reporters chasing her, cameras flashing, her phone buzzed continuously. News alerts. Emails. Missed calls. Investors wanted to meet her. Boards wanted her opinion. Damian's empire was already trembling. But she didn't celebrate. Not yet. Because the past had a way of rising again. And life was about to test her in ways she had never imagined. Maya didn't stop walking until she reached the quiet corner of the underground parking lot. Her hands were trembling. She leaned against her car and closed her eyes. The adrenaline from the confrontation was fading, leaving something heavier, something she didn't want to name. Her phone rang again. She ignored it. She needed air. Silence. A moment to breathe. But the world refused to let her rest. When she finally got into the car, she caught her reflection in the rearview mirror. Strong. Collected. Untouched. A lie. She was a woman stitched together by years of fear and survival, pretending her heart wasn't beating too fast. She whispered to herself, "You did it. You walked back into the fire." But she wasn't prepared for what would come next. That night, the entire internet exploded. News headlines flashed across every platform. Mysterious investor confronts Damian Cade, who is Maya Reyes. Cade Holdings stock drops overnight. Videos of her walking into the summit filled every feed. She sat at her dining table in her penthouse, scrolling through the notifications. Liana slept in her room down the hall, unaware of the storm her mother had unleashed. Her phone buzzed again, a different tone this time. A voice message. From an unknown number. But she knew that voice. Maya. Damian's tone was unsteady, something she had never heard from him. What are you doing back? What do you want? Call me back. She deleted the message instantly. He had no right to ask her anything. She spent the next week attending board meetings, negotiating partnerships, and investing in companies positioned to challenge Cade Holdings. Every decision she made tightened the rope around Damian's empire. She didn't have to raise a single weapon, just her influence. Still, she tried to focus on her daughter. Every morning, she walked Liana to school, holding her small hand tightly. Liana had a laugh that felt like sunlight on water, soft and warm. She loved drawing flowers, always handing Maya colorful pictures to hang on the fridge. Life felt almost normal. Until the day everything shattered again. One afternoon, as Maya picked up Liana from school, she felt eyes on her. She turned sharply, scanning the parking lot. Parents were chatting, children ran around, teachers waved goodbye. Everything looked normal. But Maya's instincts were not wrong. Her skin prickled, her pulse quickened. She gripped Liana's hand tighter. "Mommy, are you okay?" Liana asked softly. "Yes, baby. Let's go home." They walked quickly to the car. As Maya helped Liana buckle her seatbelt, she caught a glimpse of a familiar silhouette reflected in a car window across the parking lot. Her chest tightened. She spun around. The figure was gone. But she knew. Damian. He had found them. Maya drove home with her heart racing. She didn't tell Liana anything. She didn't want to scare her. After dinner, once her daughter was asleep, Maya stood by the window overlooking the city, numb to the glittering skyline. Her phone vibrated. A text. "You kept her. Maya, please. I just want to talk." Her lungs froze. She felt sick, dizzy, cold. She typed quickly, her hands shaking. "Stay away from my child." His reply came instantly. "She's mine too." Her vision blurred with fury. She blocked the number and threw the phone onto the couch. She pressed both hands against her face, fighting the tremor crawling through her veins. Her past wasn't done with her. Not by a long shot. 2 days later, she saw him again, standing across the street from Liana's school, pretending to scroll on his phone. She felt the old fear rising, clawing at her throat. She called the police. A restraining order was issued. He backed off for a while. But then he showed up near her building. Near the grocery store. Near the park. Every time, Maya held Liana's hand tighter, smiled like everything was fine, swallowed her panic. When Damian violated the restraining order twice, the court forced him to leave Solera City temporarily. He boarded a plane that same night. For a moment, silence returned. But peace has never been kind to Maya. It lasted only 3 months. One Saturday morning, Liana woke up slower than usual. Maya noticed she looked pale, her energy dim. "My chest hurts," she whispered. Maya felt a knot of dread tighten inside her. They rushed to Solera's Children's Hospital. Tests were run. Machines beeped. Nurses moved quickly. Maya sat beside her daughter's bed, gripping her tiny hand. When the doctor finally came in, he spoke gently, but the words still sliced through her. "We need her father's medical history. Immediately." Maya stared at him, frozen. "There are markers suggesting a congenital issue," he continued. "We need to know if there's any family history of heart conditions." Maya felt the world tilt beneath her. Damian. She hadn't heard from him since he was forced out of the city. She had no idea where he was now. She hated him. Feared him. Wanted him gone forever. But Liana needed help. Her trembling fingers unlocked her phone. She typed his number. The call connected before she could change her mind. Damian answered on the first ring. "Maya?" His voice was raw. "What's wrong?" "It's Liana," she whispered, hating how broken she sounded. "She's in the hospital. They need your medical history." Silence. Then a sharp inhale. "I'll be there within hours." She wanted to tell him not to come. She wanted to scream at him. But she hung up instead. Liana's condition worsened through the evening. The doctor recommended emergency surgery the next morning. When the elevator doors opened at dawn, Damian stepped out. He looked nothing like the man she had known, unshaven, thinner, eyes hollow with fear. He walked toward Maya without hesitation and handed over a folder of medical documents. "Is she okay?" he asked, voice cracking. Maya didn't answer. She didn't trust herself to speak. Damian took a seat outside Liana's room and stayed there all night. He didn't try to talk to Maya. He didn't ask questions. He just sat, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tightly, staring at the floor like he was holding himself together by sheer force. When nurses walked past, they whispered to Maya, "He hasn't slept. He hasn't eaten. He just sits there." And for the first time since she left 4 years ago, she felt something she never expected to feel. Confusion. Because this man seemed shattered. And she didn't know what to do with that. If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment to support more stories like this. Maya stood beside the hospital bed, brushing her fingers through Liana's soft hair. The little girl blinked up at her with sleepy, frightened eyes. "Mommy, will it hurt?" she whispered. Maya swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "No, sweetheart. You're very strong. The doctors are going to make you all better." Liana nodded, but her small hand tightened around Maya's. Maya leaned down and kissed her forehead, letting her lips linger there for a moment, as if she could protect her through sheer willpower. When the nurses began preparing Liana for the operating room, Maya felt her knees weaken. She stepped back, covering her mouth with her hand. Damian stood in the doorway, watching silently. His eyes were red-rimmed, strained. When the nurses finally wheeled Liana away, Maya's chest tightened painfully. The moment the doors closed behind the gurney, she broke. Her breath hitched, her vision blurred, and she pressed a hand against the wall to steady herself. She didn't hear Damian approach, didn't sense him until he spoke softly. "Maya, sit down." "I'm fine," she whispered, even though she wasn't. Her voice cracked. Damian reached out, hesitating before placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. She stiffened immediately, but she didn't pull away. "You're shaking," he said quietly. She sank onto the bench outside the surgical ward. Damian sat beside her, far enough not to touch, close enough to anchor. For a long time, they said nothing. The hallway buzzed with footsteps and soft murmurs, but the space between them felt like a vacuum, pulling on every unspoken word, every pain they had never unpacked. Maya clasped her hands together tightly, staring ahead. "She's all I have," she whispered. Damian flinched at that. "I know. You don't know anything," she replied, her voice low but sharp. He exhaled. "Then tell me. Please." Maya laughed bitterly. "Tell you? You think you have the right to know anything about my life? After what you did to me?" Damian didn't look away. "I know what I did. And it's the one thing I've never been able to escape." His voice was rough. "Every night, I see your face from that evening. The fear. The hurt. I replay it over and over, wishing I could take it back." Maya's jaw clenched. "You sent your fiancé's brother to attack me." Damian's throat tightened. "I swear I didn't know he would go that far." "You threatened my life," she whispered. "You told me to end my pregnancy or regret it." "I was a coward," he said. "A selfish, stupid coward who cared more about reputation than what was right." Maya didn't respond. She couldn't. Her heart was pounding too loudly in her chest. For the first time since he returned, she felt the weight of his guilt, not as an excuse, but as a wound he carried too. Hours passed slowly. Maya barely moved. Damian didn't leave the hallway once. Whenever nurses walked by, he stood immediately, asking for updates. Each time, the answer was the same, still in surgery. When a nurse finally came out with news, Maya's breath caught. "She's stable," the nurse said. "The surgery went well, but she'll need careful monitoring. You can see her soon." Maya closed her eyes and exhaled shakily. Her hands flew to her face as relief rushed through her like a tidal wave. She almost crumbled, but Damian caught her elbow gently, steadying her. She didn't thank him. She didn't have the emotional capacity to handle anything except her daughter's safety. They entered the recovery room together. Liana lay small and still, connected to monitors, her breathing shallow but steady. Maya pulled a chair close to the bed and gently took her daughter's hand. Tears slipped down her cheeks silently. Damian stood at the foot of the bed, staring at Liana like she was made of glass. His expression softened into something Maya had never seen on him, pure, terrified love. "She looks just like you," he whispered. Maya didn't respond, but her chest tightened painfully. He took another hesitant step. May I sit? Maya paused, then nodded stiffly. He pulled a chair to the opposite side of Liana's bed and sank into it, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tightly as if he were praying. Hours slipped by. Nurses came in and out. Liana slept peacefully. Maya watched her the entire time, stroking her hand gently. When evening approached, Damian finally spoke again. I didn't follow you because I wanted control, he said softly. I followed you because I was scared. I thought, maybe I could fix what I broke. Maya closed her eyes, exhausted. You can't fix the past. No, he agreed. But maybe I can fix what comes next. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and saw the truth. This wasn't the same man she ran from. Life had chewed him up. Guilt had hollowed him out. Failure had softened him in painful ways. But pain didn't erase the damage he caused. You don't get to ask for anything, she whispered. Not forgiveness. Not understanding. Not a place in our lives. Damian nodded slowly. Then I won't ask. I'll only be grateful for whatever you choose to give. Maya looked away abruptly, her emotions too tangled to confront. Liana stirred slightly in her sleep. Both of them leaned forward at the same time. Their shoulders almost touched, and Maya felt a jolt of something, fear, confusion, maybe something deeper, that she immediately pushed away. She stood up. I need air. Damian nodded. I'll stay with her. Maya walked out of the room, closing the door behind her. She leaned against the wall, covering her face with her hands. She felt overwhelmed, torn, shaken by emotions she never wanted to feel again. She slid down to the floor, hugging her knees. For the first time in years, she didn't know what to do next. When she finally returned, Damian was still sitting exactly where she left him, eyes fixed on Liana with a gentleness she wouldn't have believed he had. For the next few days, they stayed together in the hospital room, taking shifts to rest, to eat, to sit by Liana's side. They didn't talk much. The silence wasn't warm, but it wasn't hostile either. It was something new, fragile, uncertain. On the fourth day, when Liana finally opened her eyes, Maya felt her entire world snap back into focus. She leaned over her daughter, tears streaming. Hi, baby, she whispered. Liana smiled weakly. Mommy. Maya kissed her forehead over and over, relief flooding her. Then Liana's gaze drifted past her, landing on the man sitting quietly at the edge of the room. Who's that? Maya froze. Damian inhaled sharply, sitting up straighter. I'm someone who cares about you very much, he said gently. Liana blinked at him, confused but soft. Maya's heart twisted painfully. She wasn't ready for this moment. She wasn't ready to explain years of silence, fear, and secrets. She wasn't ready to share her daughter with the man who almost destroyed her life. But she also wasn't ready to lie. If you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to like, subscribe and comment to support more stories. Liana blinked slowly, her small hand still curled in Maya's. Who's that? She asked again, voice soft and curious. Maya looked down at her daughter and felt an ache so deep it made her dizzy. She knelt and drew Liana into her lap, pressing a gentle kiss to the top of her head. That's someone who helped us get through something very hard, she said carefully. Someone who wanted to make sure you were safe. Damian's throat tightened. He stood and stepped closer, not wanting to frighten Liana. Hi, Liana, he said, voice low and steady. My name is Damian. I'm glad you're okay. Liana studied him for a long moment, as children do when they measure the edges of a new thing. Then she nodded once, as if deciding this person could be interesting but not yet important. Hi, she said, and went back to playing with the small, embroidered blanket on her bed. Maya watched that quiet interaction and felt something she had not expected, not relief, not forgiveness, but a strange, careful truce forming in the space between them. The world had rearranged itself into a new shape, and all three of them were learning to navigate the unfamiliar contours. When Liana was discharged, the house felt different. Every corner seemed full of memories, both old and brand new. Damian helped with appointments at the clinic and called to check on refill reminders and follow-up scans. He was clumsy in kindness, unsure, persistent, determined to do right by the child he had once tried to erase. Maya kept her distance. She set boundaries and enforced them like a shield. He learned them quickly: no calls after 10, no unexpected visits at home, no demands for access beyond supervised meetings. He accepted each rule with a humility that seemed earned, not performative. Slowly, over months of small, steady interactions, the arrangement became routine. Damian sent medical reports on time. He drove Liana to a specialist when needed. Sometimes he brought flowers, simple ones, not grand gestures. He sat through school plays in the back row and applauded when Liana took a bow. He kept his distance when Maya was present but stayed close enough for Liana to see him at the edges of her life. There were setbacks. Rumors resurfaced in the business world that Maya's return was a calculated attempt to destroy Damian. He suffered more public losses, contracts cancelled, partnerships dissolved, and sometimes his gaze toward Maya was full of rage. Other times it was full of raw, aching regret. The public could not parse the complexity of a woman who had built an empire out of pain and the man who had once broken her but now held a place at his daughter's bedside. At night, Maya would sit by Liana's small bed and think of the girl she had been, the frightened assistant who walked out carrying a suitcase and nothing else. She wondered how much of her old self had been lost, and how much she had gained. Power felt different now. It was not about control. It was about protection. It was about the choices she made for the tiny person who curled under her wing. One crisp morning, Maya arranged a meeting in the city botanical garden. It was public and gentle, exactly the kind of place where she could measure the risks and let Liana decide for herself. Damian arrived early, hands in the pockets of a simple gray coat, eyes tired but present. Liana ran ahead, laughing at the pigeons, her hair bouncing in 2 braids as she chased sunlight. They met at a small bench beneath an arch of climbing roses. The air smelled faintly of earth and green things, and for a while, the world simplified into sunlight and leaves and laughter. Damian sat down slowly, watching Liana with an intensity that made Maya uneasy and oddly moved. "She loves flowers," he said quietly. "She reminds me to breathe." Maya let out a soft sound that might have been a laugh. "Then you'll be in trouble when she wants a garden," she said. "You'll have to help." He smiled, a small, private lifting of his face that felt genuine. "I always liked gardens," he admitted. "My mother used to grow lilies. She loved how they came back every spring." Maya felt a sharp ache for the layers of lives they had lived, the child she had been, the woman she had become, and the parent she was trying to be. "People come back in different forms," she said. "Not everyone gets to keep what they used to be. But sometimes the new things are better." They talked then, careful, deliberate, always circling around the wounds without tearing them open. Damian spoke of regrets that read like confessions. Maya answered with measured honesty. He never asked for absolution. She never offered it. Instead they built a framework for a future that included Liana, honesty, and limits. Word spread slowly through their circle, friends, colleagues, neighbors, that they were trying something fragile and new. Some praised Maya for giving Damian a chance to be present for his child. Others criticized her for trusting a man who once threatened her life. She listened to both and chose neither. She chose instead to follow the only clear compass she had, Liana's well-being. Months passed. Little milestones accrued like stones in a path. Liana's first recital. Her first lost tooth. A weekend at the coast where Damian carried her on his shoulders and she squealed with pure joy. Damian learned to ask before he touched, to step back when asked, to listen without defense when Maya set a boundary. He attended therapy and faced truths that made his shoulders tremble. He lost power and status, but in the quiet places of parenting, something steadier took root. When the company that once nearly swallowed Damian's career finally dissolved under the weight of bad deals and relentless scrutiny, he did not collapse. He rearranged what remained and started something small and honest, a foundation for youth programs in the city. It was modest compared to his former empire, but it was meaningful in a way spreadsheets never could be. Maya watched from her office one evening, rain blurring the city lights into ribbons. She had built Ironwood into a force that could not be denied, but it no longer filled the hollows inside her the way revenge might have promised to. Standing by the window, she thought about the choices she had made, leaving, fighting, building, and finally opening a sliver of space for something she had never expected to allow: possibility. She did not think she would ever forgive fully. She did not want to be soft in ways that would endanger her child again. But forgiveness and peace are different things. She had chosen safety and honesty over rage. She had turned pain into action. And sometimes action looked like allowing someone the right to try again, under watchful eyes and strict rules. On a bright morning a year later, Liana tugged at Maya's sleeve. "Mom," she said, breathless with the importance of the moment, "Dad is coming to my school play. Can he sit with us?" Maya looked at Damian at the back of the small auditorium. He gave a tiny nod, lips pressed together. He looked calmer now, present and human, no longer the man who had once thought reputation was worth more than a life. She reached out and squeezed Liana's hand. "Yes," she said. "He can." Liana grinned and ran off to take her place on stage. When the play ended, Damian stood and applauded the loudest. Tears filled his eyes, and for a moment, Maya realized that some things change not in grand gestures but in the ordinary, steady acts of showing up. Back at home that night, after Liana had fallen asleep, Damian and Maya stood at the kitchen counter, a safe distance apart, passing a cup of coffee between them like negotiators in a fragile treaty. "Thank you," he said finally, voice small. "For what?" Maya asked. "For staying when I wasn't sure you would." She considered the question. "For trying to be better," she answered. "We both have to keep trying." He nodded, and the agreement was not spoken but understood. They were not lovers, nor would they be. They were not enemies in the way they had been before. They were two people connected by a child, by mistakes and outcomes, bound to a future that neither controlled entirely. Outside, the city pulsed with lives that had nothing to do with them. Inside, a small family rearranged itself to make room for a new way of being, imperfect, careful, hopeful. If you liked this story and want more emotional tales like this, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Your support helps me share more stories that touch the heart.